Was Jesus born in Judea or the West Bank? We have a controversial program designed just for you, with you in mind tonight, to talk about this issue. And it's a shame that we have to even study this issue, because the Christians or the church should know better. But unfortunately, we've forgotten and we've fallen into what is politically expedient or politically correct. Good evening. I'm your host, Laurie Cardoza-Moore, and this is PJTN Online. If you're not familiar with proclaiming justice to the nations, our mission is to educate Christians about their biblical responsibility to stand with our Jewish brethren and defend the state of Israel against the rise of anti-Semitism. Never in a million years would I have imagined that I would live to see the day that we would see anti-Semitism on the rise, including replacement theology and supersessionism within Christianity. I want to introduce you to our website at pjtn.org. I hope that during the program tonight or even after the program, you'll go there, you'll sign up, get on our mailing list. And of course, if you're on Facebook, if you haven't liked us yet, we hope that you'll do that and share us with your family and friends. The mission, as I said, is to educate. The way we educate is we produce award-winning documentary films and programs, and we distribute those programs through our 21 global media partners around the world, reaching 2.6 billion viewers. Our two biggest networks that we broadcast on, of course, are Daystar and God TV. So we're going to talk a little bit about that later on in the program, let you know when you can tune in during the week so you can get some more information. But our goal with this program was to kind of open up dialogue with our audience, with our viewers, to provide the opportunity to make comments, ask questions. I get emails all week long from people who have watched our programs that have aired on Focus on Israel, and they have questions about things that they didn't know before. And so this is that opportunity to have that conversation. And as I said, we're going to have a controversial program tonight because we're going to decide where we really exist, or where Jesus really was born. I also just want to remind you that as we educate and activate, we hope that you will share our information with your family and friends so that we can help educate them as well. We would also encourage you to consider becoming a PJTN watchman, to take your watch on the wall for such a time as this. We're reminded in the Psalms that God has put watchmen on the walls of Jerusalem that will never hold their peace, day nor night. And he who makes mention of the Lord, give him no rest until he makes Jerusalem a praise in the earth. And as we see in the book of Ezekiel, we know that the role of the watchman is critical. And God holds the watchman accountable. The watchman is there to stand his watch on the wall to make sure that if any enemy is advancing toward the city, the watchman's responsibility is to warn the inhabitants so that they can prepare to protect themselves. However, if the watchman fails to warn the inhabitants when the enemy is coming, then if any innocent blood is shed, it will be required of that watchman. And we as Christians, as watchmen on the wall of Jerusalem and Israel and our Jewish brethren, have a biblical responsibility to make sure that our Jewish communities, wherever we live, are safe and protected against this rising threat, and even more so within our churches. We've been on the show, we've talked about some of the Christian leaders and pastors who have adopted replacement theology and supersessionism, and it's intolerable because there's nothing biblical about that position. There is no place in the text of Scripture for anyone to substantiate that position. But unfortunately, that age-old hatred continues on for over 2,000 years. In Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10, we are reminded that the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord, first and foremost, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. The simple message is crucial to having understanding. We must have a holy reverence for God and His ways. Those of you who tune in each week know that there is a deep desire to know truth. You're here, part of PJTN, watching our programs because you know that there is truth being spoken here. And so this is why we want to encourage you to share our message, share our Facebook online program, live program with your family and friends, and tell them about our Focus on Israel show as well. You recognize truth in your spirit when you hear it. We all do. And also, we recognize lies as well. Things just don't sit right with us when we hear untruths spoken or preached. We are living, I think we all would agree, we are living in the last days. And many faithful believers are being challenged on every side. I can't tell you how many emails I do hear, I get from people throughout the week, people who are struggling, who need healing, who have family members who need a healing, a touch from the Lord, people who need jobs, or people who are lacking finances, are struggling financially within their family. So it feels like we're all being pressured and we're all being squeezed, if you will. But as we look at events that are unfolding around the world, never could we have imagined that our generation would witness the events that are unfolding in our generation. The rise of, the alarming rise of anti-Semitism, but also the alarming rise of anti-Christian bigotry. I tell people all the time, you know, the scriptures talk about the two witnesses who testify of the one true God in the streets of Jerusalem. And I say those two witnesses who testify the one true God in the last days are Jews and Christians, because we are testifying to the same God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. One of the reasons why we see this rise of anti-Semitism that's growing globally is because of the false accusation of Israel being an apartheid state or being an occupier, which is why the topic tonight, why we're going to talk about, you know, where was Jesus born? Was it Judea or was it the West Bank? That, you know, the notion that Israel is an occupying force among Christians and pastors and priests who actually teach this, even in Bethlehem, even in Jerusalem, there are religious leaders, mainline denominations, who have adopted this false narrative, falsely accusing the Jews of occupying land that belongs to the Palestinians. We're going to talk about where the Palestinians, where the Arabs or the Palestinian descendants, the Arabs, actually were given land. The descendants of Ishmael were given land, but it wasn't the land of Canaan. Canaan was given to the 12 tribes of Israel. So we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the program as well. Obviously, this is a type of propaganda that further fuels the anti-Semitic BDS movement against Israel. And it was the impetus behind the recent decision by Airbnb to boycott Jewish owners of lodging in Judea and Samaria, or what the world calls the West Bank. And if you're not familiar with the BDS movement, I would like to, and you would like more information about this movement, I want to encourage you to go to our website, and we've got information there where you can sign up and get involved on the local level. We also have a documentary, Boycott This. It is a DVD, award-winning documentary film that I want to encourage you to go to our website at pjtn.org. You can go to the store page. There's a lot of great documentary films there and television shows that you can order and purchase, share as educational tools in your church, in your synagogue, at home, in your Bible study group. But they're great resources, great tools to watch and then have a discussion about the biblical text that you're going to find in each one of those programs. But Boycott This, as I said, is an award-winning documentary film. It was produced with a Christian audience in mind, but it's humorous, it's satirical. Brad Stein, who is the Christian comedian who goes on his first trip to Israel and goes to learn about what really is going on in the land. He goes and we travel throughout the nation state, and we interview Arabs, both Muslim and Christian and Jews, to find out, in search of, is Israel an apartheid state? Are they treating the Arabs differently than the Jews are treated? So it's an important documentary to watch, and it's also important to share with your family and friends, because people, you know, actually bought into this Airbnb issue. However, with anti-Semitism is also growing among Christians, as I mentioned, and replacement theology is historically the reason why. Supersessionism is historically the reason why Christians have turned a blind eye throughout history when Jews were being persecuted, because they believed the lie that the Jews, that God is done with the Jews, that the church has now come on the scene, and now God's finished with Israel. It's all about the Christian church. Anti-Semitism is born out of this ignorance. It's not biblically correct. And you, as I've said before, you cannot, people who adhere to this belief and this teaching cannot point us to a book, a chapter, or a verse to substantiate that position on. God made a covenant to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and their descendants eternally, forever. And there are people who even say that God's covenant with Israel is broken because they broke the covenant. Well, no. God made the covenant by himself. He put Abram to sleep, and he cut the deal. He made the covenant with himself that he would make Abraham and his descendants a great nation, and all the nations of the world would be blessed through them. The purpose of our award-winning programs is to confront this ignorance with biblical truth. And so I think you'll find every one of our programs enjoyable, informative, and again, worth sharing with your family and friends. You should also order a copy of our award-winning documentary, The Forgotten People, Christianity and the Holocaust, to learn more about how Christians have historically persecuted the Jews. Many Christians, I didn't know the history of the persecution by Christians, by the church, until I started to study really the Inquisition and the Holocaust. And, thinking about the Inquisition, the Inquisition took place under the watchful eyes of the Catholic Church. But then you have the Holocaust, which took place under the eyes of not just the Catholic Church, but also the Protestant Church in Germany. And one has to ask the question, where was the church? Why would the church stand by and allow the Jews to be persecuted, and not only allow them to be persecuted, but be the persecutors of the Jews? And they would justify what they did. It's a sad part of Christian history, but it's worth ordering the documentary and learning about this period in time so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. We will be held accountable, ladies and gentlemen, for how we treat our Jewish brethren. Yeshua even said, whatever you do to one of these, the least of my brethren. Who were his brethren? They were Jews. Whatever you do to the least of these, my brethren, that I will do unto you. So we've read those scriptures, and it kind of goes right over our head, but we never put them into the context to which they were written. It's critically important to know. God told the prophet Obadiah in the last days that he was going to wipe out the descendants of Edom because they stood by while their brother Jacob was held in captivity and they did nothing. And I say to the church, if God is going to wipe out a whole people group in the last days, the Edomites, the descendants of Edom, how is God going to judge the church? Because the church has stood by throughout history, during the pogroms, during the Inquisition, during the Holocaust. And by and large, many Christians stand by today. And they even unite with the persecutors. Now the Arabs, the terrorists who live in the Palestinian-controlled areas. We don't talk about how Christians are being persecuted or how Christians have had to flee. Real Christians, true Bible-believing Christians, have had to flee Bethlehem because of Oslo, because of the Palestinian Authority. They were not protected. The Israeli government pulled out and allowed the Palestinian Authority to rule and reign over Bethlehem, and over 80% of the Christians had to flee. In the documentary Boycott This, we did a segment called A Tale of Two Cities, where we focus on Bethlehem and we focus on Nazareth, two cities that Christians are familiar with in their Bible, especially at this time of the year when we talk about Bethlehem, where Jesus was born, and Nazareth, where he grew up. So it's important that we, again, put the text of Bible, the Bible, the scriptures, the stories in proper context. God, as we talked about God's judgment on the church, God is also going to judge the nations. We know that in the end times, God's going to bring the nations into the valley of Jehoshaphat on account of his people, and he is going to make war with them because of what they were doing, because they were coming against Jerusalem and they were trying to take Jerusalem. Unfortunately, the anti-Semitism has now infiltrated our children's textbooks and instructional materials. For those of you who have been tuning into our program and are on PJTN's mailing list, you know we've been at the forefront of exposing these historically inaccurate, biased textbooks that do not reflect the values, Judeo-Christian values of America. And this is going on across the country. We are indoctrinating our children to the religion of Islam. We're teaching our children how to make prayer rugs and how to pray the Shahada prayer, the prayer of conversion, in our schools. This is very dangerous, ladies and gentlemen, because these very things that are being taught actually violate our U.S. and state constitutions by favoring the religion of Islam. But God forbid if we teach our children to memorize the 10 Commandments out of the Torah, or we teach our kids to memorize the Beatitudes in the New Testament scriptures. Oh no, there would be such an outcry against that, but not so with Islam. So it's a very dangerous trend. It is critical for us to realize that we are jeopardizing our constitutional republic by allowing unconstitutional Islamic content that favors the establishment of Islam in our children's classrooms across this country. PJTN is on the front lines and in the headlines in this textbook battle, and we are exposing the agenda, and we are educating parents and citizens, tax-paying citizens, grandparents in local school districts. So if you're interested, if you're tuning in today, you have children in school, maybe you have grandchildren in school and you're interested in getting involved, again, go to the website, go to comments@pjtn.org. Let us know where you live. We have groups all over the country who are fighting this battle in their local communities, and we can always use an extra set of eyes and hands. If you are not familiar with our PJTN nationwide campaign, again, go to the website, pjtn.org, and go to our K-12 education initiative, and you can learn more about what we've been doing across the country. Right now, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the news. And last week, you all, or a couple weeks ago, we talked about Airbnb, who decided to boycott residences and vacation homes in Judea because they felt like they were, playing a role in the persecution of Arabs by Israelis, by Jews. And of course, we were one of the organizations that launched a nationwide campaign. We put out a statement calling all Christians and Jews, people of conscience, all of our PJTN watchmen, to contact Airbnb, let them know that they were going to start using alternative opportunities or sources out there to vacation for these vacation rentals in all over the world. But we also called people who have the rentals, who list with Airbnb, to boycott and to pull. And this week, we heard on Monday that Airbnb decided to walk back their decision to boycott those listings. And in fact, it was listed in Hebrew in Israel that Airbnb had suspended the decision after a senior delegation to Israel to negotiate with Mr. Levin. They had decided that the Israel Strategic Affairs Minister contacted the governors of New York, California, Illinois, Missouri, and Florida to urge them to speak out and take any other relevant steps, including in relation to commercial listings with Airbnb. Mr. Erden characterized Airbnb's decision as part of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions, or BDS, movement against Israel, and described it as a modern form of anti-Semitic practice. The home rentals company denied this, insisting it does not support boycotts of Israel or Israeli companies, and pointing out it still operates in Israel itself. Airbnb said it delisted the West Bank properties after deciding that they are at the core of the dispute between Israelis and Palestinians. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an anti-Semitic movement. It was started in Durban in 2005 by Omar Barghouti. He's made numerous comments. In fact, he's made numerous comments basically saying that there cannot be a two-state solution. There's only going to be one solution, and that's Arabs. It's Palestinians living side by side, no Jews. This is what these people who are pushing this movement, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, are pushing for. When we went to Israel to film the Boycott This documentary, we spoke to Arabs, we spoke to Muslims and Christians, and the narrative that they were communicating is not the same narrative. In fact, invariably, what we found out through the interviews was that Arab parents want to be able to earn a living, they want to be able to raise their children, educate them. They want to be able to provide good health care for them. They're like us. And they were not communicating the same narrative that the people, the proponents of the whole BDS movement, are communicating. I wonder why that is. But do we hear from people? Does the mainstream press go into these neighborhoods and actually sit down with these families and ask them, is Israel an apartheid state? No. They only interview the people that incite this type of rhetoric and spew it all over the world. And unfortunately, governments, academics, people all over the world have bought into this lie. And it's truly sad, because BDS is not going to hurt Israel. God is going to bless Israel. We know that from the Word. But the people who come against the nation of Israel, they are going to be the ones to pay. It will not be the Israelis. And you see Arabs, just like the SodaStream. I don't know if you all knew that SodaStream had to move its warehouse or its manufacturing plant. And 500 Palestinians, Arabs, lost their job in that move. So it's not going to hurt Israel. It's going to hurt the livelihood of Arabs who just want to raise their family, make a living, give their children a good education. So again, that's the Boycott This documentary. I want to encourage you to purchase it and to watch it. It's very informative. Also in the news, it was a couple weeks ago, I also mentioned the new caucus that has been formed in Congress called the Hamas Caucus. And it's led by 5 women that Democrats elected to Congress. And Arutsheva is reporting that Jews and Christians have much to be concerned about regarding the growing radical political influence in the Democrat Party by Islamists. There was an article that came out, as I said, and the article reads, and it's Alan Bergstein, our friend in Florida, who has the Jewish Christian Republican Club. He writes this article, and he says, in a rather ungracious slap in the face to the American people whom she will soon represent in Congress, Rashida Tlaib, the recently elected congresswoman from Michigan, has announced she will dress in Palestinian garb at her upcoming congressional swearing-in, and it is a good bet she will also demand a Quran rather than a Bible on which to place her hand when she takes the supposed vow of allegiance to this country and the laws. So it's a disturbing trend that we're seeing happening. The group is not large enough to really make a difference, but I received an earlier communication this week of the Muslims who are running for office. And these are people who have an agenda. And they have publicly stated what their agenda is. It's to push their values and their belief. This Hamas caucus, this group of women, has said that they are going to oppose everything that we stand for with Israel. So there's going to be more to see, and of course we know they're going to get a lot of media attention as time goes on. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot keep silent. And unfortunately, there are people who mean ill will toward the United States and toward Israel. And we are 2 pillars of the example of freedom of the West around the world. And unfortunately, there are people who want to destroy that. Your continued partnership and financial support will go a long way to help make our biblical mandate possible. It is because of your prayers and that support that enables PJTN to make a difference globally. Again, as I said earlier, we're broadcasting our programs to 2.6 billion viewers in 200 nations around the globe. And so we need your partnership. We need your financial support. Just to do that is $250,000 a year. That's a huge commitment for us, but we do it by faith because we believe that there are people in the audience, just like yourselves, who are going to say, I want to get behind that. I want to stand with PJTN, and I want to provide the funding so we can keep bringing truth, biblical truth, to all of these issues, to Christians, Jews, and all people of conscience around the world. We are on the front lines at PJTN, and it does come at a cost, a very high cost. I'm personally inviting you to join me in this battle. Join me on the front lines by making a financial commitment. We have a campaign going on right now. At the end of the year, we're asking people to join with us, to partner with us, to financially support us in this effort on television so that we can continue to reach Christians. It really doesn't cost much to be able to do every day, considering the number of people that we're reaching around the world. With the holidays fast approaching next week, Christians around the world are preparing to celebrate the birth of Jesus next week. Many pastors, priests, and Christian leaders will be preaching from the pulpits about that miraculous birth and the events surrounding it. But first, before we get into our Bible study this week in the book of Luke, we're going to watch a short video about another way that you can show your support for PJTN. This month marks the 70th anniversary of the historic Declaration of the State of Israel. God's sovereign hand can be seen all over this land. Included in the celebrations is the opening of the American Embassy right here in Jerusalem. In honor of this celebration, PJTN is offering a special 70th anniversary package, which includes a captivating new book and an award-winning DVD. Israel Rising is a unique visual story of Israel's miraculous journey from unforgiving desert to thriving nation. Thousands of years ago, the prophet Ezekiel foretold a future time in which the arid land of Israel would come alive for its people. Now this breathtaking book documents the fulfillment of this vision, as rarely seen photographs from the 1880s to the 1940s are juxtaposed with recent photos of the same locations. This book will inspire and captivate you as it illuminates Israel's foretold awakening in a new and unforgettable way. In addition, you'll receive the award-winning documentary, Israel Indivisible: The Case for the Ancient Homeland. This inspiring film examines the many political twists and turns that make Israel the world's most controversial nation. From Abraham and the Promise to the issues facing the Jewish state today, the film examines the historical, archaeological, legal, and biblical foundations for the modern state of Israel. This is a limited time offer for these two remarkable resources for just a one-time gift of $70 today. Your generous donation will help ensure that PJTN stays on the front lines and in the headlines of all the important issues facing Israel and our Jewish brethren. So please go to pjtn.org today. Welcome back. As I mentioned earlier tonight, we are going to look at the Bible, both the Old and New Testaments, and to expose the false narrative that Israel and the Jews are occupying Palestinian land. And so we're going to start, if you have your Bibles, if you'll turn to the book of Luke and chapter 1. That's where we're going to start, in verse 5. Luke chapter 1, verse 5. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, when I first started getting involved in the whole watching what was being communicated about Israel and them being occupiers and apartheiders, and I started, as I began to read the Bible, I began to see the words like Judea just leap off the page for me. And I thought, well, here it is right here. Why is there a problem? So I thought, okay, well, that's the secular world. They don't get it. And then as time went on, I started hearing Christians communicate the same narrative. And I would say, when they talk about, you know, Israel being an occupying force in the West Bank. And I said, what? The West Bank? Where is that in our Bible? Actually, there is a name for it. It's called Judea. So let's look at Luke chapter 1, verse 5. And this is There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias of the division of Abijah. So here we are. This is the announcement to Zacharias by the angel of John the Baptist's birth. And he's talking about Herod. And for those of you who may not know, Herod was actually a Jew. His great-grandparent or his grandparents were Edomites, and they converted to Judaism. So Herod was actually a Jew. So he was ruling in the temple in Judea, not the West Bank, ladies and gentlemen. There's another scripture I want to turn to. Let's look at Luke chapter 2 and verse 4. Luke 2 verse 4. And it says here, Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth. Remember, we talked earlier about Nazareth and Bethlehem. He went from the city of Nazareth into Judea to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed wife, who was with child. So it was that while they were there, the days had completed for her to be delivered. So here we are right here. Joseph left Nazareth, and if for those of you who have been to Israel, you know where Nazareth is. It's up there in the region of the Galilee. They had to make that trek from Nazareth and on a donkey, on probably stone roads, dirt roads, all the way down to Bethlehem, to Judea, to register. And then let's turn to, let's look at Micah next. And turn to the prophet Micah, chapter 5, verse 2. And this is the prophecy of Micah of the coming Messiah. And he says in verse 2, But you, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you are little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth are from of old, from everlasting. So here is another prophecy. Here's Micah talking about the Messiah who will come from Bethlehem, which is in Judah, because remember, Judah, Hebron, Jerusalem, that was all part of the territory, the geography, the territory of the tribe of Judah. Remember when the 12 tribes came and crossed the Jordan under Joshua, and Joshua over the years helped him conquer, or helped them, all the tribes, conquer their territory in that region, in that area called Canaan. And of course, Judah is where Judea is. It's not the West Bank, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go back to the book of Luke and back to chapter 1, and let's read verse 33 and see what we have here. So, and he will reign, this is talking about the Messiah, Jesus, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end. You know, what I find interesting about this is many Christian leaders in our generation have turned to the teachings of replacement theology and supersessionism, saying that God is done with Israel. However, in Luke 1:33, like we just read, Luke recounts the story of the angel Gabriel who visited Mary, or Miriam, which would have been her Hebrew name, to inform her that she will bear a son and he will reign over the church? No, ladies and gentlemen, that's not what it says. He will reign over the house of Jacob. And what's the other name of Jacob? We know that Jacob's name was changed to Israel. He will reign over the house of Jacob forever. And it makes the case for when Paul was talking about the Christians who embraced Yeshua as Messiah, or Jesus as the Messiah. They were grafted into the commonwealth of Israel. And that's what's being talked about right here in Luke 1:33, the house of Jacob or the house of Israel. And that's where the Gentiles were grafted into. We've been mistaken. We think we've been taught all these years that he's going to rule over the church. No, he's ruling over the house of Jacob forever, the house of Israel forever. There's another scripture I want to look at in Luke 2. Let's turn to Luke chapter 2. Because, you know, it's also, I have these conversations, and I just got an email from somebody who said, who would ask the silly question, was Jesus Jewish or was he a Christian? And unfortunately, you would be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, about how many Christians think that Jesus was a Christian. They don't know, they don't tie him, they don't connect him to his Jewish faith. They don't connect him to Israel. They don't connect him back to the prophets and what was foretold to come. A Messiah would come out of the line of David. And so when we look at Luke chapter 2, verse 21, we see, and when 8 days, and this is Jesus, this is Yeshua's circumcision, because in the Torah, boys are to be circumcised on the 8th day, and that's when they get their Hebrew name. So here it says in Luke 2:21, and when 8 days were completed for the circumcision of the child, his name was called Yeshua, they say Jesus, the name given by the angel before he was conceived in the womb. So here is Mary and Joseph, his Jewish parents, taking him to be circumcised and to receive his name on the 8th day, just as was required in the Torah. We can also go on and read further into verse 22 through 24, where it says, now when the days of her purification, this is Miriam, according to the Torah of Moses, were completed, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. This is Yeshua, Jesus, as it is written in the Torah of the law. You know, I hear Christians who tell me all the time, oh, the Torah was nailed to the cross. We don't have to follow the Torah anymore. Well, here is, you know, Yeshua's parents doing exactly what the Torah commanded. Every male who opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord, and to offer a sacrifice according to what is said in the Torah of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. So, ladies and gentlemen, here it is right here. Mary or Miriam and Joseph did exactly what was required because they followed Torah, because they were of the lineage of David. They were from the house of Judah. They were from the nation of Israel. But they were true. They kept to the word. We know that there are many examples like Joseph and Mary, but I use these two, and I'm sharing these stories with you and these verses with you to show you that Yeshua was born in Judea. Bethlehem is in Judea. It's not in the West Bank. His parents were Jewish. They kept the Torah of Moses. They kept the law according to what God had said, and they were faithful. Jesus lived his life as a Jew, and I had, there was a woman that I had a conversation with, and she argued with me about the fact that Jesus was a Christian. And when I reminded her of his lineage and his parents, then she finally said, okay, he became a Christian after he died and rose again. There is nothing in the Bible to substantiate that understanding. But that's what's happened to us as Christians. We're not studying the Word of God and putting it in its proper context, in a Hebraic context. And that's why our programs, why this PJTN online program every Wednesday night is so important to help us put the Bible in its proper perspective. I want to just start our closing tonight, and just remind you that those of you who are tuning in right now on Facebook, if you have any questions or you want to make any comments, or if you want to email me, you can make a comment right now. You can make a statement. We've got Thomas K. that's joined us. Jessica Austin has joined us. Monique Crandon says hello. Monique, we're glad you're here tonight. Thank you. Wilma Jordan Smart has joined us as well. So I want to thank all of you for tuning in tonight and learning a little bit more and putting the Christmas story back in its proper context, back in its proper biblical text. And I just want to remind you that if you are at home on Wednesdays in the afternoon, 2:30 in the afternoon that's Eastern Time, on God TV, you can catch one of our Focus on Israel shows. And then, of course, you can also catch a segment of Focus on Israel on Saturday nights at 6:30 Eastern Time on Daystar TV. And then Eastern Time, it's midnight on Sunday evening. So for those of you who like to stay up late, or if you're on the West Coast, you'll get to watch Focus on Israel Sunday nights at 9 p.m. But we're here. If you have comments, again, email me at comments@pjtn.org. I hope you will continue to tune in each Wednesday night and learn a little bit more. We're going to dig in a little bit deeper next week. Also, invite your family and friends to join us and have them bring their Bibles as well. Our program, that's our program for tonight. And again, I want to thank you for joining us. We're going to continue our conversation next week. I also hope you found this program to be educational and informative. If you have any questions, again, you can post on Facebook right now, or you can email me at comments@pjtn.org. Again, go to the website. That is a resource there to help you learn more. We've got a PJTN TV page on YouTube. We've got all of our videos listed there. I hope that you'll go there, that you'll sign up, become a subscriber to our YouTube channel, and that you will share and like our programs and share them with your network on social media as well. This is your opportunity on Wednesday nights to engage with me to ask the questions. So, Charles Kaiser, well done. Thank you, Charles, for tuning in. And Yeshua is not a Christian. He is the Christ. RJ, yes, you're absolutely right. He wasn't a Christian. He was Jewish through and through. He fulfilled what the prophets foretold. This is your opportunity to continue to communicate with us. If you want to learn more, again, tune into the programs, order our documentaries and our television shows on our store page at pjtn.org. You know about our programs, Daystar and God TV. And let's see, what else have we got for you I don't want to miss. If you are interested in having me come and speak in your area, you can go to the calendar. I may be coming to a city near you. In fact, in Florida, I've got a lot of events, speaking engagements going on in the month of January, which is a great time to be in Florida to speak anywhere because the weather is so beautiful and so nice. But if you'd like for me to come and speak to your church, your synagogue, or your community group, I would love to come and talk, whether it's about the textbooks, the BDS movement, our biblical responsibility to Israel, all of it. Even do a Bible study to go through these scriptures. We would love to do that with you. So please contact us. Remember to keep Israel and our Jewish community in your prayers with anti-Semitism on the rise and the pressure that they are facing, not just here in the United States, but also in Israel with the terrorist attacks that continue, that are ongoing. It seems like, you know, Israel never gets a break. They've got the conflict in Gaza. They've got tunnels now to the north in Lebanon. And, of course, we know about the stabbings and the people being run over by Arabs who are trying to kill more Jews. It's just, it's unacceptable that these people have to live this way. But that's why we're here, to provide that comfort, that strength, of support and love for our Jewish brethren. I also want to just remind you to send us your prayer requests. As I said earlier, I hear from people all the time asking us for prayer. You know, the fact that you care about Israel, I'm reminded of the prayer of the centurion who had a servant who was very ill. And the centurion went to the rabbis, and the rabbis went to Yeshua and told Yeshua that he needed to go and heal the centurion's servant. And the reason that they justified that this servant deserved a healing, the centurion's servant deserved a healing, was because the centurion helped to build the synagogue, and he loved his people. He loved Israel. He loved the Jewish people. And that, in their mind, justified why Yeshua should go and heal this servant. So I just pray for you tonight, those of you who are tuning in, whatever it is that you have need of, whether it's for finances, whether it's for your health, whether it's for a loved one, whatever that need is, I pray that you have taken the time, and I ask the Lord to remember the sacrifice that you have made, that you've taken the time to tune in, you've taken the time to educate yourself. You too are worthy of having your prayer answered. And God wants to deliver you. He wants to provide whatever it is that you have need of right now. He wants to give that to you. You deserve it. And, you know, we're reminded in Genesis 12:3, God said, I will bless those who bless you, Israel, and I will curse him who curses you. And all the nations of the world, the peoples of the world, shall bless themselves by you. So you deserve that healing, and you deserve that special touch from the Lord. And I just pray that upon you tonight. And if you receive that, I would love for you to email me. Send an email at comments@pjtn.org and share with me what your prayer need is. What is it that we can pray at PJTN for you? So God bless you. I just want to remind you again, like us on Facebook. You're right here, and share our programs with your family and friends. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. We're there on social media as well. And like I said, we've got the PJTN TV on YouTube. We need more subscribers, and we need more people to share our programs with their family and friends. I want to thank you again for joining us this evening. I just pray God's blessings upon you. God bless you for all you do on behalf of our Jewish brethren and for the state of Israel. And I hope you'll join us next week right here on PJTN Online. And I hope you have a very merry and safe Christmas. God bless. From studying history, it's very clear that what starts with the Jews never ends only with the Jews. We must strongly stand against any anti-Semitic trends, for if not stopped, they'll cause harm to all of us, and we'll witness the downfall of our Judeo-Christian Western culture. Today, many people say there's no longer a need for a Jewish state, that Jews around the world no longer need a place of refuge. But anyone who has heard recent statistics about the worldwide rise in anti-Semitism would never make such a claim. The reality is that neo-Nazi groups and Nazi sympathizers are increasing around the world. Surveys show that over 1 billion people in the world harbor anti-Semitic attitudes. Close to 50% believe that Jews have too much power in the business world, and 2/3 of the world's population has never heard of the Holocaust or believe the historic accounts of it are inaccurate. If there's one thing history has taught the Jewish people, a place they can go in time of need is essential, and Israel fulfills that role. But the need for a Jewish state is not limited to being only a refuge for Jews. Jewish tradition in Israel grants full rights for women and people of all races, faiths, and gender. This tradition is what often makes Israel among the first countries to send doctors and field hospitals to any place where a natural disaster occurs, utilizing their medical advances to save lives worldwide. Muslims, Christians, and people of every faith, or those of no faith, have the freedom to worship or not worship as they choose. For Muslims, the Jewish state goes out of its way to provide this freedom. For example, every Israeli university gives students the option of deferring their exams during the month of Ramadan. The Knesset calls off all sessions at sunset during Ramadan to ensure that Muslim Knesset members can break their fasts with the traditional iftar dinner. In an open and democratic manner, opportunities for education, advancement, and careers exist for all citizens in the Jewish state. Sadly, such rights and opportunities do not exist in any of the Muslim Arab states. For example, in neighboring Jordan, Jews cannot become citizens. And in Saudi Arabia, no non-Muslim can become a citizen. Saying that Israel must cease to exist as a Jewish state while accepting that other countries define themselves as Muslim is pure hypocrisy. In most of these countries, no rights exist for non-Muslims, women, and the LGBT community. Don't let yourself be manipulated by evil people with a wicked agenda. When the self-serving villains are in control, good people from all religions suffer. Muslims, Christians, and all people of conscience should stand proudly and show respect for a country that gives so much to the world in so many ways. Do your part, do your research, and do what you can to make a difference. Because what happens in Israel does affect us all. This is not just a Jewish or just an Israeli problem. This is a problem for all humanity, for each and every one of us who believe in freedom and human rights. Learn more about what you can do at pjtn.org.
To support this program, send your tax-deductible gift to Proclaiming Justice to the Nations, P.O. Box 682711, Franklin, Tennessee 37068. You can also support PJTN online. Visit pjtn.org or call 1-877-873-9020.
Anti-Semitism has reached epic proportions, and Israel is now surrounded by nations who seek its destruction. For Israel to lose just one battle would mean losing everything. As Christians, it is our biblical responsibility to stand with our Jewish brethren and Israel. PJTN needs your help to reach more Christians with this urgent message. Please visit our website to become a member today and order our award-winning documentaries. You must decide that you won't be silent. Sign up now at pjtn.org. God bless you and thank you for your support and prayers.